my name is Nadine and welcome to Hop Along Studio. In today's video, I want to share with you how you can blend Pan Pastels with Sofft tools to create beautiful blends on white paper. And I'll also be covering the Colorless blender and some of the mediums in this exercise as well. And I thought a great way of learning how to blend would be using a Neurographic Art Technique. And if you've never looked into neurography or neurographic art, this is a really fun way to get past that blank page. So let's get started. So let's first talk about materials. I'm going to be using a variety of Pan Pastels today, also including the Colorless blender, as well as a couple of the white and black glittered mediums. I also am going to be using a variety of the Sofft tools. Some of these are the wand ones, some of these are just going to be the sponges. And if you're interested in any of these supplies and the specifics about them, you can find them below in the description. So neurographic art was created by a Russian psychologist named Pan Pastel in 2014. And his belief was that the methods and the technique of neurographic art could transform our world. And the idea was to move this from more analytical left brain thinking to more right brain thinking into that creative space. And so the idea of this is just to help us move from the conscious to the unconscious. What's really great about this technique is you do not need to have any drawing experience. You don't need to have any technical experience. It's a great way of just getting into a creative technique. And to start with, you want to take a moment to breathe, to think about what's maybe on your mind, what might be distracting your thoughts. And through using a pen, do a series of lines on your page to represent that. And you just want to start by just adding in lines based off of whatever your thought pattern is. It could be you're relaxed and you're having a really great day. It could be you're really stressed out, and those lines could really show some of that frustration that you're having in your life. The idea is to do some curved lines. Find a way to connect with what's going on in your brain. And they don't have to stay on the page. You actually do want to go have some lines go off the page. The idea is this is going to help you kind of work through those feelings and those thoughts. And so I'm keeping this one quite simple today because I really wanted to keep this an easy exercise instead of getting into too much complexity with the lines. And then once you have your initial lines, you want to start shaping these lines into something else. And this is where you can start thinking about what you're going through in your day. And maybe you've just had some frustrations, or maybe you're having a lovely day and you feel nothing but gratitude and joy. But whatever that space is, focus on it as you're drawing and as you're adding your lines. You can thin or make lines thicker. If you have a line that you don't like the look of, you can adjust it and change it. You can add more lines depending on how you're feeling. This is not about perfection. This is not about even having this be anything specific. You may see shape in it. You may pull something out of it that means something to you. But the idea of it is just to allow your mind to go, to not get so caught up in the creative and in the process part of the art that you spend so much judging it that you don't have the time for the relaxation, that sense of self-care. And the whole point of this type of art form is just to get you into being in the moment, being present. How is your body feeling? What are you thinking? Part of the reason I started art journaling years ago was it was a way of just expressing my thoughts and my feelings and having a safe place for me to just express without judgment. And I find it's hard enough for me not to judge myself most of the time that so often we can judge our own art. And that's why I spend a lot of time in my art journal, because it's my one place where I kind of give myself permission to play and try. And it doesn't have to be on a canvas. It doesn't have to be something that anybody sees. I actually have art journals that I share with you on a weekly basis. I also have art journals that nobody gets to see. And that's on purpose. And that gives me a place where I can do exercises like this and work through some of the thoughts that I have and find that place of relaxation. And you may have gone to this exercise feeling fear or anxiety. You might be going into this exercise feeling amazing today. Whatever that feeling is, this is a place to let it out. This is a place for you to have that space just to be. You want to continue this on with every connection on your page. As you can see that just by changing that, now you see more circular shapes. Now you see more curves. And so instead of being just random shapes, now this is becoming something more. So now I've done all of the little intersections on all of my lines. You could do this in any color. I just chose black today just because it's easy to show up on the camera. Now what I'm going to do is go in with some Pan Pastel and just start adding some blending into the paper. For this exercise, I'm using Strathmore 200 paper, and I'm just applying it onto the surface. And Strathmore 200 paper is kind of nice because it has some nice tooth to it. It has a little bit of give. But at the same time, it's not super smooth, so the Pan Pastel will stick nicely to the paper. In a few weeks, I was planning on testing a few different papers to show you which ones I like the most for my creative practice. And so you'll notice the color's on pretty well. It's not super smooth, so this is where the Colorless blender really shines. And so what I'm going to do is take the same sponge, dab it in slightly to the Colorless blender, and then add it. And what you'll notice is it starts blending this a little bit more smoothly. It helps extend the color, so you get a much smoother blend. What makes this really nice is when you want to go for very light colors, instead of having it be really spotty. Now it's extremely smooth, and it looks like a very smooth blend. And then if I wanted to add other colors on top, I can always just add in a little bit of a darker tone. Maybe want to pull that tone across a few different areas here. And you can see the more I pull it, then the more spotty it's getting. So then pull some blender, a Colorless blender in. And what this does is it just extends it. And so you could do this in areas like this. You could also do it in very small areas. When doing in areas like this, I might choose that I like that blue, but I want to maybe add a different color to it. So I'm just going to flip my sponge over a little bit. I'll actually just use this side here. I'm going to throw in some green. This is the beauty of the Pan Pastels, is you can now add in layer on layer, and it still has a little bit of that blue color underneath it, but you can add in that stronger green color. And if you ever have an area like this where I went past, all you need to do is erase, add back in some of that blue, and now you have a perfect edge. And so this is why Pan Pastels are really nice if you are learning art for the first time. They are very forgiving. So I'm going to move to a smaller tool because these tools, they're good, but they're a little bit big for this space. So I'm going to move to a more deep purple. And I always found the hardest thing about the white was getting a good blend of color, because sometimes I found that it would start looking streaky. It would be hard to get a nice soft blend and get a soft blend that didn't have a lot of weird marks in it. Again, going in with that Colorless blender, it just pulls the color and just smooths it out so nicely. And then you can have those little light edges in there as well that work really beautifully on the page. I'm just going to put a piece of paper over top. This is what you can always do when you're working with pastels. You don't have to deal with things just as they are. You can just add in other colors and then just continue to work your way down, and that way you can kind of stay out of a puddle of mess. And so in here, I'm just going to add in some yellow. And this is where I could choose to do a couple areas in the yellow. Again, a little bit more of that Colorless blender to help it give a really smooth blend out to the edge. And then if I just add a little bit of blue along the edge, you can get a little bit more muted blue because I used a little bit more of a deeper blue there. And this is where you can choose to have some very strong lines. Or I'll go in with a lighter blue. You can try to blend it a little bit smoother. So this is the beauty of using Pan Pastels, is you can cover lots of area very quickly. But what's also nice about it is you can also have very strong lines. I'm going to go again in with the purple. And so you could do a very strong line. You could actually do lines like that throughout your entire Pan Pastel piece. But more importantly, I just wanted to show you kind of how you can blend it out. And now with this one, you can see it's, as I'm having less on the surface, it's causing me not to have nearly as smooth of a blend. So now I'm going to just blend it out. And you can see that all I've done is add some Colorless blender, and that just gives it that really smooth blend. And you can go in and maybe just add a little bit of that magenta, just add a little bit more color to the surface. And what's really nice about this Strathmore paper is it will take layers and layers of Pan Pastels and work really well. I know sometimes people are worried about not getting a paper that will be able to handle the Pan Pastel, because what you need with Pan Pastels is you need a certain amount of tooth on the paper. And what that means is you want something that's going to grab the pastel, Because if you use this on Bristol, which I have used it on Bristol before, and I get a lot of smearing and smudging, and I don't really end up with a result that I'm super happy with. Why you want to have a piece of paper that has some tooth, that has a little bit of roughness to the surface, it just helps the pastel to stick. And you can move very softly and in circular motions. Again, I'm really enjoying doing this green-blue thing, so I'm going to add a nice blue edge to that. And let's go a little bit more extreme with our colors. I started with one purple, but why not? Why don't we just add some red on it and see what happens? I'm adding in a fairly bright red. You can see how it's even getting toned down by that layer of purple underneath. So this is the beauty of it, is even if you only have a few colors of Pan Pastels, by blending you can get a lot of different looks. And you might notice that as I'm putting this on, I'm not pulling hard across. You should actually not really have any little crumbs on the top of your Pan Pastels when you pull your tool through. You don't need to pick up a ton of color to have it go a really long way. And let's add some orange, or actually some yellow, to turn this into orange. And even though I have a bit of a purple base there, I just want a little bit darker. And then in areas like this, I'm just adding in the yellow to get a more vibrant tone. And then with those edges, because I didn't do a great job with my edges there, I'm using a little bit bigger tool than I usually would. You just take your eraser, erase the edges, and continue on. So I wanted to show you a couple more color combinations before we call it done. One of them is this very light lime green color. This is a great color for adding to your surface. Because it has that nice green base, it works quite well with the other greens and the other blues. And even there I got a little bit of the orange through it, but I don't mind. I think it looks pretty cool. And the reason I wanted to show you a blending video like this is, one, to show you the colorless blenders, because I think they're amazing. I really didn't use these on white paper until I got the colorless blender, and I kind of went, oh, that's the reason why things aren't working very well. And for me, it was a real aha moment of how I can get some of these colors to really work well together. And when you add those really dark colors on top, they can really mute the color underneath. I'm going to come in with a little bit more color on top that's a little bit lighter, and let's see what kind of blend we can get. That smooths out that blend a little bit more. So I'm actually going to use some silver on this. There are a bunch of metallic Pan Pastels as well. I only own the silver because I decided instead of getting a bunch of the individual metallic colors, I would choose to just purchase a couple of the mediums. And the mediums here, I will show you on this green one here. So if I add a little bit of this more chunky white medium on top here, you can see it gets very, very sparkly. So by giving up a tiny bit of the color vibrance, you can end up with a lot of sparkle on your surface. And there's also the black one, and the black one I'll just do along the edge here. So you can see it adds some sparkle, but it's also quite dark. You have to use these things sparingly. You need to figure out how you want to use them in your artistic practice so that they don't overwhelm maybe some of the colors that you're doing. But I like them because of the fact that I end up with just a sparkly medium that can add to any color. I'm not stuck buying 5 or 6 or 8 different colors just to get something with a little bit of sparkle in it. So I'm not using any particular color scheme. This is something that you could choose to either stick to just a couple colors to do an entire page like this, or you could use a lot of colors like I have here. And that's just your personal preference, what you would like to see from this, and what kind of blending you're looking to get. And so I'm going to continue working down the page until I finish this, but this just gives you an idea about basically how you can mix all these colors together on a watercolor surface and be able to get really great results. So there's my finished page, and you can see that I didn't really stick to one color scheme. I didn't really stick to one color, and I kind of went completely random. I threw down colors as I felt like I wanted to, and this for me is a really great color study. This is a way to see where the Pan Pastels blend together. So I hope you learned a couple different things. One, how to do a neurographic art project, and also how to use your Pan Pastels. So the one thing about using Pan Pastels in a journal is you have to either seal it or you basically need to leave the other page blank, because the Pan Pastel will transfer onto another page. So what I personally like to use is Spectra Fix. This is a concentrated version of it. I have decanted it with some vodka into a separate bottle. They actually suggest using Everclear or vodka or some sort of other colorless alcohol for mixing this. And so I've added a little bit in the sprayer. I usually end up doing 2 or 3 separate sprays. I find that usually gives you the best final finish. It does not affect the color, and that's one really wonderful thing about the Spectra Fix is you get the same vivid colors that you originally put down. So I hope you've enjoyed learning how to blend your Pan Pastels, and this is giving you some more ideas for color blends. And I hope you've enjoyed this neurographic art technique. It is something that's been new to me, and I just want to say thank you to Joyce, who follows me on YouTube. Your comment about neurographic art is what got me on this in the first place, and just thank you for the suggestion to look it up. And so if you've enjoyed this video, I also have another video on Pan Pastels that you may find useful, and that one I use it with mediums, and it's probably one of my most popular YouTube videos, so I hope you'll check that out as well. And if you've enjoyed this video, if you could like it, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I would love to hear any comments you have. If you have any questions about Pan Pastels or some ideas of what you would like to learn in the next few weeks about Pan Pastels, I do have a series of videos that I'm putting together for that, and would love your suggestions if there's something specific you would like to learn. And so I hope you have a really great week, that you take some time for some personal self-care, and I will see you next time.